What are we even gonna do with this game? Get Kojima in here. We need you to make a good video game. Okay, but good video games take time to be made. Time? Get it! Sometimes during game development, projects need to be cut down in size, brought back to the drawing board, or worst case scenario, tossed away never to be brought up again. And unfortunately, a lot of canceled projects get their gender reveal party right before their abortion. There's nothing more tragic than death, other than torture, which is exactly how I describe my emotional torment whenever I remember Star Wars 1313 was a third-person action-adventure game made in Unreal Engine 3 and announced in May 2012, around the same time as Cyberpunk 2077, actually. And development on the project was being done by Skywalker Sound and Industrial Light and Magic, which were companies founded by George Lucas for Star Wars movie projects, alongside Lucasfilm Animations, which was the studio that led Star Wars The Clone Wars. The game followed Boba Fett in his early childhood in an underground civilization below the planet of Coruscant, known as Level 1313. With George Lucas working on the video game alongside the other developers on the team, Star Wars 1313 was shaping up to be a really good Star Wars game, especially after its gameplay reveal at E3 shortly after the announcement in May. Throughout development, George, having creative lead on the project, would frequently change his mind on what he wanted to happen in the stories and what characters he wanted to involve. A quote from one of the developers at the time gives us an idea of what it was like working alongside George Lucas. One of the problems of working in a film company, Lucas is used to being able to change his mind. He didn't really have a capacity for understanding how damaging and difficult these changes were. Because like when Rockstar decided to add black bars in the cutscenes in Red Dead 2, the developers had to redo all the camera work in every single cutscene to make sure it emphasized the right things in unison with the cinematic black bars. Last minute changes in video games cause a lot of stress. But what's more stressful than getting $4 billion? A lot of things. And that's also what Disney bought Lucasfilm Ltd for. With a big company like Disney taking hold of everything George Lucas was responsible for, things were looking good for Star Wars 1313, as it would probably be getting a bigger budget thrown at the project. But as the months went by with no word on Star Wars 1313, a feeling of tragedy began to ensue, and in March 2013, it was announced that Star Wars 1313 would be put on hold, followed up by a whole ass cancellation the following month. From what we saw of Star Wars 1313, it looked like a really fun game. The third-person gameplay and expensive cinematic detail made it look like another unforgettable story-driven experience like The Last of Us or God of War. Fortunately, Lucasfilm stated that Star Wars 1313 could be picked up again by an external developer, but due to licensing issues, it would either have to be done by EA or Ubisoft. But seeing as EA already has a third-person Star Wars adventure series, potential of Star Wars 1313 being picked up or remade is very, very low. I find the subject of canceled or lost video games so interesting because there's something so gripping about learning the game development process and what can go wrong, especially inside of these companies behind some of the most innovative and ambitious projects of all time. Agent was a brand new Rockstar IP, and it was one of those games that was reported to be the best, most amazing thing to ever grace mankind. Over the course of its half-lifespan, it was said it would set the bar for the rest of the industry. It was genre-defining, and would even be up there right next to the Grand Theft Auto franchise, while only planning to be released on the PlayStation 3. So, impossible standard right off the bat. Let's be real, no matter how good your game is, the last thing you should do is advertise it as a fantastical gaming experience better than anything else out there. Just one N. Isn't that the point of advertising? No! Be like modern Rockstar. Show actual in-game footage and let people come to their own conclusions, because that's how you don't get waves of frustrated players at launch. The golden rule is if you say your game is good, people are gonna think it's great, and if you say it's great, they're gonna think it's gonna change their life forever, so best not to say too much about it in the first place. In 2009, when Agent was formally announced at E3, there was a lot of anticipation surrounding the project, especially because it was another period piece coming out from Rockstar, taking place in the late 1970s and set in the Cold War era, where you play as an agent/assassin taking down political figures. Hello? After 2 years of silence, an environmental artist from Rockstar posted screenshots of one of the interiors from Agent, and the pictures were allegedly from a 2009 build of the game. Strangely enough, the game's graphics appeared relatively outdated, even by 2009 standards, and most of the people that saw the leak were pretty disappointed, especially since this was a genre-defining title coming out of a company that always pushes what the current gen next-gen consoles can handle. It's just Red Dead. It's just Red Dead. Come on. Although graphics are one of the last things to be finalized in game design, I mean, GTA 5 didn't look too hot during development either. And think about what GTA 6 looked like back in 2021. With the PlayStation 4 being revealed, people were expecting Agent to be a launch title for the console. But when asked about it, the head of Sony Worldwide Studios claimed, "You are asking the wrong person. I have some knowledge, but I'm not in a position to talk about it." Take-Two continued to renew the trademark of Agent, making people believe the game was still happening. In 2015, more screenshots of the game were revealed by another artist at Rockstar, showing what seems to be a level taking place in Morocco. Oh my god, is that dust too? Darren Charles Hatton, the environmental artist behind the leak, claimed that him and the team were assigned to Grand Theft Auto 5 during Agent's development, and he was unsure whether the game would ever come out. But with Take-Two once again renewing the trademark in 2016, things weren't completely hopeless for Agent. The following year, there were more leaks from Agent, this time being concept art, revealing more variants in scenery than the previous leaks. But tragically, in 2018, the Agent trademark was declared abandoned by the United States Patent and Trademark Office, and Agent was officially lost media. There's so many questions about Agent. Like, what was so genre-defining about it? Why did a seemingly non-open world game take so long for Rockstar to make? And why did they decide to abandon the project after the success of Grand Theft Auto 5? Well, in 2023, the ex-technical director at Rockstar North broke the ice and revealed a bunch of information about Agent, its plans, and its development. Unfortunately, the blog has been taken down because some people at Rockstar weren't happy about the information being publicized, but it has been publicized. Nothing we can do about it. I'm gonna talk about it. According to the source, Agent would have been a more linear experience compared to Grand Theft Auto, and it would have taken place in multiple different locations around the world, featuring a downhill gunfight on skis before finalizing in a big shootout in space with laser guns. The game was being developed in Grand Theft Auto 4's engine, and the team tried really hard to downscale the game so they could get the bulk of it finished before the inevitable call to pull everybody's focus towards GTA 5. But unfortunately, the project was far too big, far too outdated, and far too hopeless to continue. Moment of silence for Agent. But speaking of Grand Theft Auto, do you guys remember when Rockstar pulled the 3D trilogy off of digital store shelves? It seems like video games are being pulled from digital stores left and right nowadays. Ubisoft pulled The Crew off its respective marketplaces and even stated that gamers should get used to not owning their games. I think it's important to talk about this kind of video game homicide as well, and with the rise of live service games flooding the market, companies are getting away with anti-consumer practices like this more and more now. Hell, even for Red Dead Redemption 2 on PC, you need to be connected online to play the game through Rockstar's launcher, meaning one day if the Rockstar Social Club goes down, your copy of Red Dead 2 won't even work anymore. I'm sure you've all heard of the petition in the EU known as Stop Killing Games that's working towards making the government place laws on selling video games that are designed to be unplayable once support ends. Thankfully, they've already passed the 1 million signatures mark, and if you live in the EU, you can still sign the petition. While I do think the gaming community blows a lot of stuff out of proportion just because people love to complain, developers abandoning video games is absolutely a real issue. Manhunt on Steam is impossible to progress because for some reason, the copy that Rockstar sells on the store is a pirated version with their anti-pirate measures enabled, including an unopenable gate at the very beginning of the game that's needed to progress. The only way to play the game is to mod it, which, to be fair, it is an older title, so you're probably going to be modding it anyways, but for real, video games should work without mods, and I will die silently on that hill. What the? Silent Hill has had a big glow up in the last few years, but prior to this comeback, holy shit, this franchise faced a major decline in quality. In 1996, Konami hired a team of developers to make a game that would be successful in America. But even though Konami was solely focused on the financial aspect of what was to come, the team they hired actually ended up being the coolest, most goated horror writers of all time. And they decided to create a psychological horror project that would influence emotions over anything else. Silent Hill 1 and Silent Hill 2 are both beautifully tragic games, and there is so much storytelling in the environments, music, and even posters all throughout the games. The stories drew heavy inspiration from Jacob's Ladder, Crime and Punishment, and Alien, plus a dab of Japanese folklore, giving it its own original style in the horror genre. There is, or more so was, nothing like Silent Hill and Silent Hill 2. With the launch of 3 and 4, the franchise began to take a step back from psychological horror and 2 steps forward into linear action. With Silent Hill 4 especially integrating more combat into its formula. The series was still well received, as Silent Hill 3 being a continuation of Silent Hill 1 was great, but at the same time, Silent Hill and Silent Hill 2 were completely different games, and fans wanted something completely different again. Konami saw the positive but critical reception the franchise was getting after Silent Hill 4 and said, "Hey guys, you're fired." And then they handed the Silent Hill IP over to a couple American developers, hoping they would switch things up, but they completely missed the point of Silent Hill, kept pushing for combat, and sales began to plummet. What happened to the Silent Hill franchise was nothing short of depressing. But in 2012, Konami brought the man, the myth, the legend, Hideo Kojima in to write the next Silent Hill game, alongside filmmaker Guillermo del Toro, with Norman Reedus playing the protagonist, and people didn't know at the time, but renowned Japanese horror artist Junji Ito was also involved with the project. Hideo Kojima claimed that Silent Hill had a certain atmosphere that he wanted to continue, basically confirming that the franchise was so back. And with the playable teaser for the game that was PT, we got a taste of the kind of horror that Kojima could cook up, which was spectacular, symbolic, and everything that the franchise desperately needed. Silent Hills wasn't just a new Silent Hill game, it was the game that was going to save the franchise. It had potential to be the best one in the series, or at least the best since 4. On April 27th, 2015, Norman Reedus tweeted that Silent Hills had been canceled after Guillermo del Toro told attendees at a San Francisco film festival that the game had been canceled as well. Later that month, Konami officially stated that the game was canceled, but they would still be making Silent Hill games. Kojima was having problems with Konami during the development of Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. Despite making the fucking company what it is today, Konami was getting pretty antsy with Kojima because the game was taking over 5 years to be made, and they were tired of pouring resources into getting the project out. The thing about good art is that it takes time, and Metal Gear Solid 5 is an amazing game, and it would have been even better if it wasn't rushed out the door. Because of Konami's ignorance, Kojima and his staff left the company, took Norman Reedus and Del Toro with them, and made Death Stranding. Even though Death Stranding is an amazing game, shut the fuck up, I don't care what you say, it's not Silent Hills. And what burns the most is that PT was so good. The trailer to Silent Hills was so good. The team they had for the project was outstanding. At least with Agent, we really didn't know enough to judge whether it would be amazing or not, although it was a mainline Rockstar title, so it probably would have been great. But Junji Ito, Hideo Kojima, this fucking cancellation was a psychological horror game on its own. The more I think about it, the more it hurts. But I know a game that came out and was fun. I know a game that got me through quarantine. If Silent Hills was smothered with a pillow in its sleep, Red Dead Online was shot in the leg and left to starve in the middle of the desert. Red Dead Online is a good video game. The variety in game modes and unlocks makes the grind fun, especially if you rotate the jobs you take on while doing daily challenges and checking your treasure maps. The core gameplay of Red Dead Redemption 2 is already good, and Red Dead Online currently has hundreds of hours of content that if you like to grind and immerse yourself in a multiplayer western, it is an awesome game to do that with. The tragedy of Red Dead Online is that it didn't have to be a good game. It could have been a great game, and Rockstar set it up to be their next big live service game mode, but so much went wrong with Red Dead Online that they ultimately gave up hope and abandoned the project way too early in its lifespan. When Red Dead Online first launched in November of 2018, the game faced a brutal wombo combo from terrible server performance and a general lack of outlaw-related content. Despite its incredible single-player mode where you could interact with NPCs, rob people, and pull off heists, Red Dead Online had a few variants of side missions, and that's it. You couldn't interact with NPCs, you couldn't rob any store or person walking by. Even the trains were void of people, making them impossible to hold up. In a world where convenience stores aren't even fun to rob anymore because everybody pays on debit, this was the last thing gamers needed, and Rockstar kicked up their feet and took their sweet time before adding anything heist related. This was the first and biggest hit to Red Dead Online because it was a negative first impression for everybody playing, even the people that liked the game, because they kept getting booted from Rockstar's servers. Is it bad that this screen is kind of nostalgic now? Finally, in 2019, Rockstar added a singular heist into Red Dead Online that you could get major profit from once. And it was good, but because it was just a dishonorable campaign mission, it got old pretty fast, and Red Dead Online still barely had anything to do until the big, the one, the only Frontier Pursuits update. Red Dead Online was said to be beyond saving, but this update was 10 steps in the right direction. Bounty hunting with 2 pacifist playstyles to rotate between, it was perfect. After the success of the update, Rockstar put Red Dead Redemption 2 on PC, and the port was so bad. For some reason, Red Dead Redemption 2 ran very pretty bad with early to mid-gen i5 and i7 CPUs, and a handful of people had to use launch commands just for the game to work right. And at launch, it wasn't even on Steam, it was on Epic and the Rockstar launcher. Following this event was the Moonshiners update, which once again was a great addition to Red Dead Online, featuring a new way to make money, a real property, and a new co-op campaign. What more could you want? Anything. From December until the end of July, Red Dead Online had no content updates, and with GTA Online getting its biggest one yet, Red Dead players thought they might be getting the same treatment, but sadly, the Naturalist update was okay. The new updates were awesome, and legendary animals were an amazing addition for free roam, but for being the last big update until summer of 2021, it was so lackluster. So what happened with Red Dead Online, and why did Rockstar abandon the service? There's a lot of reasons to why Red Dead Online was neglected. One, Rockstar is a company that takes advantage of every studio they have to make sure that their games are of substantial quality. With Grand Theft Auto 6 being in development, the developers at the company needed to focus on what mattered. You could say that their focus was 1000% GTA Online, but when you actually pay attention to most of the content updates in GTA Online, it's recycled animations, locations, and content that would be significantly easier to make than a brand new video game. Two, Red Dead Online wasn't making nearly as much money for the company compared to GTA Online, because GTA's fast gameplay appeals to people who don't want to wait for things, aka grinding the same content over and over again, which results in purchasing microtransactions to get ahead. While Red Dead Online's player base consisted of people that actually enjoyed Red Dead's slow formula, so the players that logged into Red Dead Online played it mostly for the gameplay itself, which is why gold bar purchases were a lot more scarce compared to GTA Online's shark cards. The last decently sized update Red Dead Online received was nothing short of a tuberculosis in the lungs. Blood Money was supposed to be the massive heist update that was heavily anticipated since launch, but instead it was recycled content painted over with some new objective text. It was still fun and a good update. I mean, if you've been starving for a year, Chef Boyardee is gonna taste like a 5-star steak, but it was underwhelming and not what anybody expected or wanted. Today, a lot of people still play Red Dead Online because, like I said, the core gameplay of Red Dead Redemption 2 is fun, and adding friends into the mix gives potential for a lot of ungodly long Discord calls. But Rockstar killed the service by neglecting it, and the loyal player base that the game had built over the years. Personally, on a tier list of Sting level, I would put Silent Hills at S, Agent at A for Agent, Red Dead Online at B, and Star Wars 1313 somewhere between A and B. Dead video games are fascinating because a lot of the time the concept of them sounds so appealing, and as time goes on, more information usually does get leaked, which is so hard not to look at, but also makes the grieving process so much worse. Which is why I want to ask you guys, what do you think about all this? What canceled video game stings you the most? Let me know in the comments below and I'll check them out as soon as I possibly can. As always, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to watch this video, and make sure to have a good one.
Oh, give me the scraps! Look at my character. I need that shit more than you.